Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the General Licensing Committee on the 23rd of October. My name's Derek Beer and my Vice Chairman is Louise Bowen. Welcome. And of course, it's the first meeting of this year. We've had so many licensing meetings, but this is the first general one, isn't it? So there we go. John, do we have any apologies, please?
Apologies for absence were received from Councillors Emma Parker, David Morecambe and Sarah Williams. Thank you.
Thank you. And are there any other apologies from the floor? No? Thank you very much indeed. We won't approve minutes of the last meeting because there aren't any, so that was good. So can I have a... No, I'm only joking. Right, there we go. So there's no minutes. That's great. And do we have any declarations of interest? I was a little bit worried that some of us use taxis, but I think that's almost a dispensation, really, isn't it? Yeah. Are there any other declarations of interest, please? No, thank you. And there's no public participation, I believe, John?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
So in that case, we'll move straight to item 5 on the agenda, which is the street trading controls. It's quite an interesting subject, and we'll go to John to introduce the report. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Chair. It's a relatively straightforward matter, this one. In order to control street trading in Dorset, we need to formally adopt the Schedule 4 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1982. Now, this has previously been adopted by a number of the predecessor councils. However, it's not Dorset area-wide, so it's just a procedural matter, really, to make a recommendation, if you're so minded, to full council in December, I think it's the 5th of December, to pass a resolution formally adopting Schedule 4 of the Act. And that will enable us to designate streets and will enable us to implement a new street trading policy, which is the next item on the agenda. But as this is a separate recommendation to full council, it's got its own separate report.
Okay, so this is just a recommendation. We'll talk about the detail in the next in the next bit. Yes, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm happy to propose that because it's just a procedural process, so we need to move forward.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder, please? Thank you. Well, that was nice and straightforward, wasn't it? That's one done. And so in that case, we'll now put some meat on the bone and go to the next bit. Thank you. Item 6.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so as previously mentioned, we're in need of a new street trading policy. We've got existing policies in Weymouth and Portland, East Dorset and Purbeck, and we've rather oddly got a small number of designations in West Dorset. But we need a new policy. We've drafted a new policy. It's quite complicated because there's a lot of different areas, a lot of different arrangements that are in place with local markets, with town councils. We've got a number of prohibited streets. We've got a number of consent streets. So it's a real mix mash, if you like, of a setup at the moment. And so we're overdue, shall we say, for a new policy. Primarily, this gives us the ability to control illegal street trading. So anyone who sort of rocks up and blocks the highway or is selling counterfeit goods or is trading without permission gives us the powers to deal with them. Because at the minute we don't have those powers. And we have, you're probably aware, Chair, a couple of issues across in various locations which are quite long-standing issues which we've been unable to deal with. So this will give us the ability to do that. The policy, it sort of follows a standard basis. We're looking at potentially designating all of the roads in Dorset as consent streets, which means that you need a consent to trade anywhere. There are a number of different ways to do street trading policies. You can designate streets as prohibited streets. You're not allowed to trade in this street. as consent streets or as licensed streets. However, what we found previously is this chases illegal traders around, so they find the nearest place that they can trade, which isn't prohibited. So it becomes a little bit cat and mouse and can get quite time consuming. And then also it involves keep bringing the policy back every time we want to add a new road, designate a new street. So the proposal as it stands, it's not set in stone, is to designate all of the streets as consent streets, to require anybody trading within those consent streets to apply for consent with us. Now, we've got quite a few existing traders, so we'll obviously look to prioritise those. Where there are no issues, that will be relatively straightforward. There will be a new fee structure, a new pricing structure, and the proposal within the policy, and it is just draft at the moment, is to have 4 different types of consent. One would be for a static trader, so where they're based, and that would be their street trading pitch, if you like. We would have a second type would be for mobile traders, so ice cream vans, etc., that travel around and stop and sell their goods. We would have a third type of permission, which is a short-term, temporary sort of experimental permission, if you like, where somebody could come in maybe for a couple of days and just see how it goes, see if it works, see if we're happy, see if they're happy, and then before they make a formal application. And then the fourth type, which you'll be glad to hear caters for our existing arrangements with the town councils, is for a multi-user permission. So that permission would be granted to the town council themselves, and then they would be able to allocate pitches to their traders on an ongoing basis. So that would look after places like Bridport, etc. So there's a few, we think we've covered all bases. We're not 100%, so hence sending it out for a full public consultation. We have done some preliminary discussions with the town council, so we think we've got it right, but obviously it will all come out in the wash. The process is, for a normal street trader, is to identify a pitch where they would like to trade, to come to us with a proposal, to show us the location, show us what their stall will look like, tell us what kinds of goods that they're going to be selling, what hours they're going to be trading, whether they will need to take their unit away at night, otherwise it potentially attracts planning permission issues. And then what we do is we take that and we put it out to consultation. So there are a number of statutory consultees like highways, police, etc. But then also if it sort of impacts on another premises, then we'll consult with them as well if it sort of impinges on their frontage, for example. There are quite a few exceptions to street trading, and they're all listed in the policy. So we're talking about sort of peddlers, for example. So if you've got a valid peddler's certificate and they're not staying static in one place, they're moving from place to place, visiting customers, then they're potentially exempt. The small hair braiders, those kinds of people, because they're selling a service, not a product, so they're not covered. And then we've also got shops that are selling the same sort of goods that are inside the shop at the front of their shop. They would not be included as well. And there's some other exemptions, for example, charter markets, they're not included. So if a market is established by way of royal charter, then they're not included in street trading. So all of that's mentioned in the policy. So once we've done, just going back to the process, once we've done that consultation with the statutory partners and anyone else that might be affected, then we would issue the licence for the stall. We would issue a badge for the person or any person working on the stall regularly. They would need to do a disclosure and barring basic check for criminal records and obviously pay the fee, etc. There's a couple of appendices to the policy, to the draft policy. One is in relation to relevant offences, so anything to do with theft or drugs, violence, etc., would preclude you from being able to apply. There's some standard conditions that would be attached to each licence, and then there's another section on peddlers and how we treat peddlers, etc. And that's it really. So it's a draft policy that's going out to full public consultation. I'm in dialogue with the consultation team about when that might start. They're looking probably at the end of the month, and that will go to run for 12 weeks, take us over Christmas. And then the process would be to list all of those responses, to look at them one by one, make any changes as necessary, put some recommendations together and bring that back to this committee for a decision. There may be a requirement to involve overview, which is fine. We've done that before. That isn't my proposal at the moment, but of course, if it wants to go through, if overview would like to have oversight of the policy, we can do that, so it's no problem. And then last but not least, we're currently drafting up an equalities impact assessment, so we can actually look at whether any sort of like vulnerable groups or protected minorities are likely to be impacted by this new policy, and that will come back to committee with the responses as well. But I'm happy to answer any questions or deal with it, look at the detail. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That's one heck of a report, and there's an awful lot of work gone into it, so thank you. But before I go to the floor, just one quick question I have. If I were to apply to you for a licence and go through all that absolutely appropriate procedure, is there a time frame you set for that, really? Do we say, if someone wanted to set up, could they say we can do this within X number of days or not really? Do you have just a thought?
There is. So we have a statutory consultation period. It's all set out in the policy. With regards to sort of tacit consent on a permission being approved, if we run over the time frame, that I don't think that applies in this case. So I don't think we're legally obliged to process the application within a certain time frame. So the current thoughts are that we'd give ourselves 5 working days to pull together the consultation once we've got. So if I roll back a little bit, so we always help our licensees. So they come to us for advice where they're looking to trade, what they're trying to sell, and what their stall will look like, and we'll give them some feedback on whether we think that will be successful. So chances are, actually, when we get an application, we're pretty sure that it's probably going to be quite well received, because we will have already given them a lot of advice on it. So we give ourselves 5 working days to get that consultation out. Then there's a 14-day period where we'll receive feedback from statutory authorities, etc. And then, providing there's no sort of significant negative response in terms of that, that's a really daft place to put that, or there's going to be problems with the width of the pavement, or there's an existing business nearby that sells exactly the same thing, those kinds of things, providing we don't get any significant feedback, then we'll look to issue that as soon as we reasonably can.
I think street trading really is a fundamental part of Dorset life, isn't it? So it's important we get this right. Les.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Les Fry, Dorchester West. This is a good policy. John has given a very good introduction to it. I see little point in us debating and discussing it now, because people and consultees, of which there's a wide range, are going to make their comments, and we might be better placed to listen and hear their comments when they come back, rather than commenting now, which could be changed as part of the consultation process anyway.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Well, they're well-received report, obviously well put together. Then the recommendation is we send this to Cabinet. Yep.
So the recommendation, Chair, is that it goes out to a full public consultation. So that will include all councillors, Dorset councillors as well. So happy to take that response back to me. Thank you.
So the recommendation, as we've heard, can I have a proposal, please? Thank you. All those in favour? Carried. John, thank you for that. That was really interesting. Although there wasn't much debate, it was a really interesting report and a good one to read. Thank you. So, item 7 then, increase in taxi fares for Dorset. Aileen's published it. John, you're going to introduce it, yeah?
Thank you, Chair. I did offer to Aileen that I would cover this as well, save her driving in specifically for it. Another simple matter, Chair. So the cost of running a taxi has gone up significantly. The cost of fuel, cost of insurance, running a car, etc. And so we went quite a few years without any increases on the maximum tariff that could be charged. And this can result in some quite hefty jumps. And the trade expressed to us that they didn't really like doing that. They'd much rather have smaller, regular increases just to keep track with the cost of living and the cost of running taxis. So last year we saw an increase to the Hackney carriage fares within Weymouth. This year we've had a request from the Hackney carriage operators in the rest of Dorset. So we have two zones. We have a limited number of Hackney carriage drivers, proprietors within Weymouth, and that this doesn't affect them. They had an increase last year. This affects the rest of Dorset. So everywhere outside of Weymouth and Portland, the maximum tariff that can be charged. So it gives leeway to charge a little bit extra. It's not the actual charge. So if you chose to charge less, so this doesn't stifle competition. It just gives the ability to charge a little bit more where appropriate. Obviously, private hire vehicles, they set their own tariffs based on a contract with the customer when they hire the vehicle. This is for Hackney carriages. It's the maximum tariff that can be charged, and it's to go out to consultation, Chair. So we've done some preliminary consultation with the trade, and they are all generally supportive. And so it's to put this back out again for a 14-day public consultation. And this is slightly different, this one, because it's an executive decision. So when those responses come back to licensing committee, which they will, to a future meeting, the recommendation will be to Cabinet, which can either go to Cabinet or go to the portfolio holder, Jill Taylor, for approval. I think it's important just to say, Chair, that in some parts of Dorset, taxi provision is not sufficient. We do struggle, certainly in more remote towns. This could potentially have an impact on low-income families that need to use taxis. So, it's not a straightforward rubber stamping. There will be some responses. We have to place a notice in the paper, and we have to publicise the consultation. So there may well be a decision to be made about whether this is approved at the next licensing committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John. As you quite rightly say, in our rural areas and our not so rural areas, they very much are an important part of our public transport system. But for me, the most important thing is this: it's the maximum fare. And it was funny once being in a taxi, and they said we've got to put the fare up because the council says we've got to, and it's not that at all. It's the ceiling, and they can charge what they like below it. Any comments or questions, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to clarify one point. I'm looking at Appendix 4, please. Can you just confirm the top there, the date? Is that the correct date on that one? The proposed charges. Top right, top left corner. That's the one, John.
No, that is the existing tariff card, which has been updated with the new proposed charges, but the date's actually wrong. So we would, within the report itself, there's a recommendation that if there aren't substantial objections to which come forward as part of the consultation, that the tariff will be automatically approved. If not, then it will be up to the committee to decide what date that comes into force. So that will be updated, that date.
Are you happy with that answer, Les? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the floor, please? Jill?
No, yet again, I propose that we get on and do the consultation. I am concerned about the balance, because you're quite right. For some people, this will be hard times on top of hard times. But equally, if we want taxi drivers to continue being taxi drivers, we've got to provide them with a living. So, so I'd be interested to see what comes back from the consultation, but I'm proposing that's what we do.
You're absolutely right. It's such a balance, isn't it? Because we've got these quite substantial towns without taxis at many times of the day, and it's difficult. It really is difficult. So it's a balance. So you proposed that you'll second it, Les. Thank you. Any other comments from anybody? No? Oh, come on! You come all this way and you've got no comments. There we go.
I'd just like to urge people to vote for the motion. I think that the most important thing is that there are enough taxi drivers. Currently, my experience is there aren't enough, and they need to earn an honest living. So I think we should. I support the motion.
Yeah, absolutely. And so many of them just want to go to airports rather than to the doctors or whatever. Right, thank you. So we have a recommendation. You're all in favour? I thought, yeah, thank you. So that's carried. Thank you very much, John, for that. And we'll look forward to that coming back. It would be good, I think. We used to, at North Dawson, it probably happened here. Once a year or so, we get representatives from the taxi industry in, just for a little consultation exercise. Sometimes it was a bit of a scrap, but it was good to get them in and get their feelings and just see if we were getting it right for them.
Yes, you're right. I think it's been over a year since we've had a taxi forum, and it does get quite heated sometimes. Yes, and I think we did hold it in the council chamber last time. So, I'll speak to Aileen and see if we can organise another one. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So now then we move to item 8. John, any urgent business? Sorry.
Sorry. There are no urgent items, thank you.
And no exempt business?
No exempt business, thank you.
Well, the other important thing we've got to do today before we go and get coffee is to thank John for looking after us. He's going to move on and Megan's taking over, so we'll welcome Megan to look after us in the future. That's brilliant. But John's been lovely. Megan is going to look after us really well, and thanks, John. And we'll still see you at licensing subs, won't we? And there's hundreds of those, aren't there? So. And at 10:22, Les, you'll be very pleased you get away and do what you needed to do. Thank you.